Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
We are live with Jean Morrison, my friend. I got to know Jean in December of 2018, I believe, was when we first met, and have had fabulous conversations ever since. And I'm like, I have got to get you on my channel. um, Jean, pardon me, I have a little bit of allergy thing going on. So if I cough a little bit, pardon my allergies a little here. I have a lot of clients that have issues with trauma, stress, whether it's violence or mental abuse or physical abuse or any type of abuse, emotional abuse, that of any age, from young to 75, 80 years old, that are still healing from traumas. And Jean is a DIY resilience coach, and she has such wonderful information to share. So I wanted to make sure that I had her on the channel for you guys. All of her contact information is below the video in the description box. So her email address, her phone number, her YouTube channel link, her website link, everything is in their events. So just look in the section down below the description box on the video, and you'll see all of her contact information. Now, there is an issue we've discovered right with your website, because it's a newer website. I had trouble getting into it. I had to go into my firewall on my computer and say that this website was okay, and then it would let me into the website. So if anyone has problems getting into the website, check your firewall on your computer and make sure it's okay. Artie is here, as you can see, resident cat. He's got to be here to hear all this, how to let go of some stress. So Jean, let's just talk about you for a minute, if that's okay.
Sure.
Jean is a resilience coach and is a 5th degree black belt Taekwondo expert here. So don't mess with Jean, right?
Well, yeah, don't try it.
She has over 3 decades of experience. And pardon me, I'm reading some notes because I don't want to forget anything. 3 decades of experience. She's a 2-time award-winning Woman of the Year for her work with survivors of violence, abuse, and neglect. She won in 2000 in Los Angeles County Commission for Women, and she just won in 2020, congratulations, in the California Assembly Woman of the Year.
Thank you. I actually haven't received that one because it was supposed to be awarded right after lockdown.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But it's such an honor, though,
Wow. So you teach self-defense, you're offering empowerment programs, and you're sometimes working in political circles to advance and advocate for services and policies in these areas. Is that all correct?
Yes. And I've also written a book called Sugar Plus Stress Equals Sick. So I'm also an author. And so I work on whole body wellness, really, and have for quite a while.
Right. And you also work with nutrition, even whole body nutrition.
Yeah, that was the whole point of writing Sugar Plus Stress Equals Sick. It was looking at nutrition in the United States and how that impacts mental health. So it was a really important part of my journey overall in figuring out, well, what are all the different ways that you can really de-stress? Is it, so many times we just focus on the mind or the body as if they're disconnected, but really, it's in the same container. And so, but we forget that. So
yeah, I can always tell if I've eaten too much junk food, or too much sugar, my body reacts.
Oh yeah, and in fact, sugar is in about 90% of anything that's in boxes, cans, or bottles at the store. And for convenience sake, that's what we buy most of the time. So yeah, sugar has crept into all of our diet, and we've exported our diet around the world. And as a result of that, we've exported everything that we've experienced as a result of that diet. Increases in heart heart disease, diabetes, and mental health issues.
Yeah.
We're certainly seeing a lot of that right now.
I'm sure there's a lot of comfort eating going on since we're in lockdown with the coronavirus out there. So I know I haven't eaten as healthy in lockdown as I should.
Well, neither have I, but I think on some level, so it's good to know this information. It's also part of resilience is not to be a perfectionist, and to be able to weigh out what the situation is right now and, make a plan for now and to keep on track or get back on track after the crisis pass, right?
Right.
So,
So let's start with, what does a resilience coach do? Explain what a resilience coach is for everybody.
Well, I have the best job in the world because what I do is I help people to lead happier lives, whether they like it or not. No, not really. What I do is I help people to take small steps and end up with big transformations, in several different areas. So I might work on managing emotions or figuring out your life purpose or refiguring out your life purpose and your values and goals. I might also look at, connection and support issues. Or do you need to build confidence and have some more productivity? And of course, self-care, So basically life, so look at what's
So
going on.
you don't have to have gone through some trauma to need a resilience coach. You may
No,
be trying to restructure your life in some way.
no, not at all. And really, it's much the same as a life coach. Only I focus on resilience because my specific background is so heavily weighted in mental health issues and stress reduction. And so, that's what a resilience coach does. Essentially, I meet people wherever they are and hold their hand and get them a little further down the journey.
So what kind of people do you tend to get that come to you for help?
All sorts of people, but I think I can probably lump them into a few different categories. People are either stressed or suffering or stuck, one of those three. A lot of the folks that I'm working with right now really are suffering and have a lot of stress. Obviously, those two things are combined. But also, I'm working with someone who is going through a life transition, is transgender and is going through transition and needs a little support in that area. I also work with kids who have autism. I'm experienced with some behavior therapy, so I help him to work on what he's going to do with his emotions, managing his emotions mainly and planning for the future. Really there are so many different areas that I can help people with. And a lot of the folks that I work with also because of my background, what we didn't say in the beginning is that I'm a survivor of child sexual assault. And so many of the skills that I've learned over the years, I've done myself.
As we've talked, I'm a survivor of a very abusive upbringing, childhood too, and I think that's why you resonate so strongly with me, because I can see the good that you can do for people to help them to heal of any age, right? I mean, you're working with clients of any age.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coaching people from, I don't know, I think the youngest kid I ever worked with was age 3. And the oldest person I ever worked with was in their 70s. Mm-hmm. And so really, wherever someone is in life I just jump in, I look what's going on, or I work with caregivers and figure out a path forward. As a survivor right now, it's a really interesting time. I mean, people are suffering from chronic stress right now, but people who have previous, events or PTSD, things of that nature, big emotional events from the past, really have it doubly hard right now. I mean, folks are just seeing their triggers and their symptoms go through the roof. And so
I think a lot of people are suffering from PTSD from just the politics and the pandemic that's going on. So what kind of symptoms are you seeing in your clients as a result of, the pandemic and politics and everything else going on in their lives? I mean, people getting laid off. What types of symptoms are you seeing?
well, a lot of chronic stress, certainly, but then, folks who are losing their jobs, or they're losing their businesses, or they're having to quarantine, like I'm quarantined because of an underlying condition. So people have really seen their patterns, their typical patterns in their life, and their hopes for the future seemingly stopped in their tracks. And that creates a lot of hopeless feelings, right? But I'm also seeing a whole lot of people, everything from like, extreme irritability to just forgetting everything, right? Just folks being unable to remember what day it is, right? Or
Yeah,
just that forgetfulness is through the roof at this point, but also other kinds of chronic stress symptoms like fatigue and headaches, and difficulty sleeping, and digestive problems, even and changes in appetite. I mean, that everything, all of that. Those are all chronic stress symptoms. And then again, folks with PTSD will see their symptoms on steroids.
yeah. So, what does it mean to be resilient right now, in the midst of multiple crises going on in our country and in the world? What does it mean to be resilient right now?
Well, I think it really means to be adaptable in the midst of insanity. It's really, this is a complete, I think we have to start by acknowledging that this really is an insane time. This is on so many different levels. I mean, we're dealing with not just one crisis, but a multitude of unfolding crises. We had, what I feel is like an attack on democracy going on in the country, and starting in the White House, and then, on top of that, we have the coronavirus, happening. All of those things are creating, we talked about the job loss and people losing businesses, but we're also dealing with political upheaval, and seemingly some of the fabric of, this country that I love so much just tearing at the seams. That's really challenging. Any one of those would be challenging. So, you got to start, if you're going to be resilient, you got to start by acknowledging this is where we are. You have to accept this is it. We can't be in denial about it. And then once you're past that denial, then I think what it means is really sticking true to your goals and your values and your purpose. And really, seeing that this time is going to come to an end. It's not going to last forever. We're going to get past it. So, deal with what's in front of you now. If things really are falling apart, find help, act collectively. Make sure also, I think resilience is also making sure that we're very creative about how we connect with other people.
Yeah.
Connection is so important to resilience. But
and connection is difficult if you have people of the opposite political party in your family, in your home. It's very difficult to stay connected right now. A lot of people feel like the rug is pulled out from under them. There's a lot of uncertainty, and they don't know what to do with that. So I could imagine you get a lot of people that are just stressed out and trying to identify those goals to move forward with.
Well, if we're talking about family for a second, my father comes from a family of 11. There were 11 kids in his family. All right. It's a huge group of people. It usually gets together at Thanksgiving every year. And yeah, they're all over the political spectrum. Last year, that was kind of an issue. So I'm kind of relieved in some way. My own stress is relieved in that we're not getting together this Thanksgiving because of that. But I really, have had to reevaluate how I'm relating to my family members. How can I maintain a connection and have a meaningful relationship to these people who I do care about? But who I clearly disagree with, you know. And now with the situation in the country, I mean, it just seems like all of that is so much more important, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we feel like we're ready to fight, we're ready to get in there, we're ready to, fight for our position and uphold it. And if you get on Twitter, you've gained skills in how to attack people. I mean, this is a time now. I think we're entering into a time where we really have to turn that around. We're clearly at a point where, especially because of coronavirus, where caring for each other and caring about each other is critical.
And how we start those conversations to bridge the gap that has divided us.
Right. I think that if we put an emphasis on the fact that we care about this person first, is what's important. I mean, obviously, you need to understand picking and choosing your battles, what you want to do to be able to maintain a relationship over time. That's
what I was going to ask you about next. Like with people feeling so overwhelmed and stressed out, what kind of advice do you give to people to just for our viewers who may not have a childhood trauma, but they've got stress going on? What kind of advice can you give to them?
Well, just the basics. Really increase positivity. Increase your interaction with with self-care, doing more for yourself and for others. Decrease your interaction with negative things. So, for instance, I love politics and I like to watch the news, but at this point, it's down to a sliver of time during the day, and I just watch and see what the headlines are and move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard when people are working from home. The temptation to always have the news on is there. I'm pointing to my TV, is there to always like be plugged into it. And it's like, no, sometimes you just got to turn it off, don't you?
Right, exactly. And it's really, resilience is about adaptability. It's about a play of balance, right? Mm-hmm. So right now, everybody's situation is a little bit different. We're all experiencing coronavirus, but we're all experiencing it in some very different ways. And so you have to look at, how do you create balance in this kind of circumstance? Certainly, staying away from a lot of negative news is a good place to start, and it's a very general thing, but you got to dial it in and make it very personal for you. So it might mean that you go in and you do what I call brain rest. Because of the fatigue and the constant chronic stress, folks need to rest their brain more frequently than normal. And that's a little different than meditation. It's just as simple as just taking up space. So here's what that means. And this is actually scientifically proven that if you take up space at least 2 hours a day, you'll be a happier person.
I was going to ask you, what does that mean? Because I binge watched a bunch of your videos on your YouTube channel. She does wonderful meditation videos, guys, and or just, brain rest videos. I'm not going to call them pure meditation. Very calming. I binge watched a whole bunch of them. They're short videos that give you just that little break. But what is brain rest? What is that?
Right. So, I want to get back to taking up space, but let's talk about brain rest first. So, but brain rest is literally just, it's recommended for productivity. Studies have been done that show that that really, if you behave in an opposite way that Americans tend to behave, you're more productive. So it turns out that if you work for about 52 minutes, you want to take about 17 minutes of a break where you step away from work entirely and do things like, even look, you can watch the screen. Turns out watching kittens is great. So it's not a waste of time. It actually, if you can manage to do that, then you end up being more productive in the long run. So brain rest is, my contribution to that. It's not really a meditation. It seems like a guided meditation, but a lot of it is really affirmations. So, giving yourself some good positive self-talk in that, 17 minutes, if you can manage it, or even just, I constructed it as 5 to 7 minutes, because that's about the average of what my clients are willing to do during the day a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Right. And so, and you can even listen to them in the car. You can, wherever you are, you can get that little bit of positivity and move on. Right. And
So
it
I'll be
actually,
making some videos for you of my cats
awesome.
for brain rest.
I'll put them on there with some good background sound. People need this.
Mhm.
In fact, some of the things that I'm doing, I have these great. I love using senses as a means of redirecting emotion, and in terms of balance, that's one thing that's another thing that people can really do right now to help themselves. What does that mean? Well. Right now, if you're wherever you are sitting in a chair, this might sound a little weird, okay, but you can really get into feeling the chair. What is the texture of the chair? Is it bumpy? Is it soft? Is there a difference between the arms? Is there a difference in the legs? Can you sense your connection, where it is that your body is connected from, to the chair? What parts of your body? If you do that, it really has a lot to do, calming down and redirecting difficult emotions has a lot to do with your organ of attention,
So I was
right?
going to say it changes your focus. Yeah.
That's it.
So if you're starting to get a negative focus, it changes your focus and your intentions.
Right. And that's a great help now tip, So, I mentioned taking up space. And look, it's my favorite, so I just have to get back to it. So, so taking up space is literally something you can do almost anywhere, not when you're driving, but maybe in traffic. And it is exactly how it sounds. You just spread your arms and legs out as wide as possible. In arms and legs, you can do this sitting, you can do this lying down,
So,
wherever you
so
are.
for my viewers, think of Artie when I post pictures of him laying on his back and man spreading, making himself as big as he can.
I've seen those. And so, yeah, that's it. I mean, giving yourself permission, if you want to try to keep that space for about 2 minutes, but really another way that you can balance out right now is remembering to have a lot of humor and to be a kid. Give yourself permission to be a giant child. Not a giant child having a tantrum, but a giant child, get into dancing around or say one of the things that I do, and I have these sessions that I do with folks, and we're going to do them again coming up, that I call mindful sound. And in those, I always make sure that I include some sort of dance. There's one called the Gobble Gobble Turkey Wobble we're doing right now for Thanksgiving. So literally getting up and flapping around, being a kid.
Even if it's being silly, being
Yeah.
a kid. Yeah. It's interesting because back in the 1980s, when I healed a lot from the abuse I went through, I had read the book Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. And one of the aspects of my personality I had disconnected from was I named her Baby Jenny. She was a little girl, Baby Jenny, that I shut out and didn't bring out to play. So learning to play, learning to be creative, and learning to play again as an adult, it's so important.
Well, it's not only important to get to know your inner child from the standpoint of play, but also from a standpoint of managing emotions, right? We all have that. They're pre-memory. We store a lot of emotions in the amygdala. It's the most primitive part of our brain. And all that's going on in the amygdala is just storing emotion, storing emotion. We don't have memory during that time until the hippocampus comes on around age 3, right? So as a result, we all have these emotional reactions that are packed in there that just, seem to come at us from nowhere. It's from that time. So getting to know your inner child is a really important part of managing emotions. Then you have to move from getting to know them to parenting your inner child.
Yeah.
You know,
When it's appropriate to play and when it's not.
Yeah. But for right now, I know that, right now, if for instance, just an example of being a child and, trying to get through this time, how to incorporate that. If you have a teddy bear and you need a teddy bear and sleep with a teddy bear at night, do that. Why not? It's just soothe you, whatever you can do to appropriately soothe your inner child at this time is really important. You don't have to parent a child doesn't mean that you have to be mean you aren't mean to a child all the time, but you have to sometimes go, yeah, of course you need that.
And learn lessons from our pets, from our cats and dogs, because they know how to take up space better than anyone.
Right. So I managed to catch a couple of comments I thought I might respond to. One is taking up space. Yes, it's definitely easier to take up space if you're on the floor or on a bed or on a couch. The chair is probably my least favorite, but I always offer options because, as it turns out, some people may not, because of their own past experience, may actually have been traumatized in different positions. So it's good to have options.
Yeah. And in a car, you don't have as much room to take up space in if you're driving in a traffic jam.
Right. Or a sports car. That could be tough.
You're talking about, sleep with a teddy bear, if that is comforting. What about sleep? Besides medication, what else can be done? Because a lot of people are having trouble sleeping in this time because of stress. Right. What other advice, or what about sleep? How important is that?
Sleep is critical to positive mental health, but there's this vicious cycle, right? So, if you're having some mental health issues and you're having chronic stress, then it negatively impacts your sleep. You lose sleep, and then you lose sleep, you get more stressed, and you have more mental health, and it's this whole cycle, right?
And then you get on a shorter fuse. If you're like me, if I haven't had enough sleep, I'm more prone to an outburst or something.
Oh yeah, I seem nice now, but my martial arts students know that evil eye. So it's right. Anybody can get cranky. Everybody has their limits, right? So there are a bunch of different. There's so many different ways that you can positively impact sleep. Of course, there's always the obvious ones, like trying to shut off electronics at least 2 hours before going to bed. Now that takes discipline for a lot of people.
Yes.
Who are,
I sit with my phone while I'm watching, the news at night, and I'm sitting there, multitasking, doing multiple things.
Right. But that's part of that stepping away, having the discipline to step away from feeling like you have to be really super hyper vigilant about what's happening in the news. I know we all feel like that because it's been like that for 4 years now, and it's become a pattern for us. Right. But what I'm saying is, especially at this time, got to step back for your own health, really. If you're losing sleep, it also decreases your immune system. And heaven knows we need good immune systems right now.
Yes, absolutely.
So, right. So electronics off about 2 hours before bed, and then explore things like white noise. I'm going to actually start posting more sleep help posts on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so, look for those. Subscribe so you'll be notified. Then you'll definitely see them.
But everybody's a little different too with sleep. I know, like, I've worked for bosses that would only sleep 5 hours a night. I am not that kind of person. I have to have minimum 8 hours of sleep, or you will get cranky Jenny in the morning that needs about 10 cups of coffee. So I am not good at functioning at my best if I haven't had at least 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, and my ex needed something like 9 hours of sleep, and I could never figure that out. So you're right, everybody's different. Try to do your best to try to maintain your routine. If you find yourself where you're coming up on your, the last hour before bed and you're still, really stressing out, turn off the scary movie, watch, do something that's relaxing, take a bath before bed. If you can't take a bath, do something like, aside from the white noise, um, uh, get more comfortable bedding around you. There have been stages now where I've taken a bunch of blankets. I don't like to have them all piled on top, but I'll put them all around me. It just gives me a sense of support. Some people like to have a weighted blanket, and that really helps. For some people, that's way too much. But also, and I'm not giving medical advice, I try to stay away from medications, but there really are a number of over-the-counter kinds of supplements that are all natural that you can look into. But really, if you're going to do that, I'm talking about things like melatonin, 5-HTP, GABA, and theanine in some combination that works. That's what I do. And if you want to explore that, it's a good time to explore that with somebody who really knows what they're doing, right?
For me, it's a bubble bath at night. I might get up and take a shower in the morning, but that night I am taking a 1-hour bubble bath, and it's my me time, my downtime. I have some soft music going, and it's no news, no work, no nothing. It's just me time.
A couple of other, little things is, I see somebody likes to use melatonin to help them go to sleep. Absolutely. A couple of other natural things to do are things like getting some lavender oil and rubbing it on the bottom of your feet. That can be something that's really good. Even smelling lavender oil.
My favorite bubble bath is a lavender scented bubble bath because it's so relaxing. And I have a tendency to put a little bit of lavender oil on a sachet inside my pillowcase. I don't put it directly on my pillowcase because I don't want to stain it. So I put it on a little sachet and tuck it inside my pillowcase.
Right. Those little kinds of things can really help. Now, one thing does not work for everybody. And really, when you're working with people in resilience, you have to emphasize that. It's really important to personalize these things. There are different kinds of pillows that you can look into that can really help. But also, one of my most personally stressed clients really benefits from either reading a book or reading a book before bed always puts me to sleep. But for her, doing a body scan type of meditation.
Yeah, as long as it's not a Stephen King novel, yes, reading a book at night is a wonderful way to relax.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's like the same as don't watch Stephen King before bed.
You'll be paranoid and stressed.
Right. Beyond that, there are other kinds of things that people can look into, like biofeedback, and it gets more complicated. The important thing is to start, and if you go down that road and you need some help, somebody like an experienced coach in that area could help you dial it in. People get lost a lot of the time, and so the importance of having a coach is really having somebody to walk through that with you. Somebody who's already been down that road can be invaluable.
So your training and your experience can help people that have, whether it's trauma or abuse or neglect, or whether it's just stress and panic attacks and coping issues.
That's right. I have a lot of training. I have a lot of training in various kinds of relaxation techniques. So I can do guided meditation with people. I can also do something called community resilience model, or which has also been recognized by the Department of Justice as helpful for people with combat PTSD over time. There's a therapeutic model, and then there's a model that coaches can use. I'm trained in this, and really it helps. It's an excellent way of learning how to ground, how to use your memory, positive memory, to redirect. Again, really a lot of stress and a lot of abuse and neglect, are really about memories that have fused, in your brain and are stuck. If you think about it, if you're traumatized once, even just one time, now, not everybody gets PTSD from a single experience or even multiple experiences, violent experiences or abuse. But when you're abused and you experience some sort of violence, what happens is a memory capsule forms. It's a memory bubble, let's just say. So in that memory bubble, you have everything that you saw, smelled, tasted, or heard. Every one of your senses is in that bubble, along with what you saw, what you physically felt, the somatic part of it, right?
Right.
And so that's what the triggers are about in terms of people who have PTSD. You see something randomly through the day. Like one time I saw somebody, I think I mentioned this to you, it's like saw somebody with big hands sitting across the table from me, and it triggered an extremely intense reaction. I had to catch my breath, and I was out in public at this meeting, and I had already gone down the road of figuring out what to do. So I used some breathing exercises. I calmed myself down. I got back to center first. Calm first. Calm always comes before better decisions, right?
Right.
Or any path forward. So, I calmed down, and I actually talked to the gentleman that was sitting across from me with the big hands and asked him if I could, I said, look, this is what's going on with me. I know you don't know me, but do you mind if I just talk to you for a bit? And in the process that I used, helped me to really get past some of that, holding on to that particular set of memories, that pattern.
Wow.
And so there are many ways that you can work on teasing apart those neurons that fuse together at the times of abuse, so that it lightens the load, so that it feels less onerous, so that it lifts off your shoulders a little bit. And, that's the goal. So when I'm working with people with emotional management, it might be that.
Yeah.
But
we talked about just last week. I had a coworker I worked with years ago that struggled from anorexia and bulimia. She went both ways, and discovered, as I sat down and talked to her, and I was trying to get her to get into some kind of therapy, discovered she had totally squelched the memory of the trauma that she had an uncle that sexually abused her when she was younger. And then as she was going through therapy, then she had the whole issue of letting her parents know, like her dad especially, your brother did this to me, and it triggered her anorexia. So, there's that situation too where you can be somewhere in public, like you seeing the hands, and it triggers something that you may not have even thought about.
And think about it. If it's that kind of day, that can really make somebody who's experiencing those kinds of things feel like they're out of their mind, out of control, and, just feel hopeless. And you feel like, how am I going to get to my goals if I can't even get through an hour or a day? And it's really important to address that. There is help. There are people who can help. And, finding them and connecting them is what's important. Just don't give up is what I would say to those people. For me, part of the reason why I became a coach is because I, had a lot of these difficulties, and I went through a lot of therapy at different points in my life. Again, I had a complex PTSD diagnosis. What happened to me happened over the course of many years. And so I had a lot to process, just a little bit. And so I went through therapy, but, there was only so much I could talk through. And the therapists that I would work with were more oriented in that direction. So there are a lot of different therapists, right? I just knew that I needed to figure out a way to live my daily life, and I needed some different skills. Now, more recently, there are more programs and folks coming forward with teaching those skills from different angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but this is why I became a resilience coach. I'm like, how, I need to figure out how I'm going to get from point A to point B sometime. I
Yeah,
better.
how am I going to make it for a week until I see my therapist again? Because you work in conjunction with therapists a lot of times, I know. So what do you think is the biggest challenge most people face when they're trying to reduce stress? Where do you feel like the biggest obstacles or challenges are?
A little bit about what I was just talking about, taking the first step. And honestly, that has to do with whether or not you're a trauma survivor or you're just an average person experiencing chronic stress, for very different reasons.
And it's never too late. You can be 75 years old and heal this aspect, bring some healing into this.
Right, exactly. Well, the thing is that sometimes people who have chronic stress feel like, walk around as Americans. Well, I'm supposed to be able to handle it. I'm just going to suck it up and go. Suck it up. I'm going to keep going. No matter what, I'm a rugged individualist. I'm just going to go, right? Rugged individualism is the worst thing that's happened. That concept is the worst thing that's happened to humanity as far as I'm concerned, But the other side, but then, right, abuse survivors, the issue is, maybe I've tried these different things. Can I muster up enough trust to go start again? Right?
Right.
It's the first step is really just being willing to take the first step to try, and then it's
to reach out for help.
Yeah, to reach out for help, and then follow through and do it. Once you find a good, the right person to work with, though, that's really critical. There are so many different approaches. Therapists have all sorts of different personalities. They're human beings. Their specialties are different. So you gotta, if you're somebody who's wanting to look for a therapist or a coach, it's all about that relationship.
What's the difference between a therapist and a coach? Explain that for our viewers here.
Yeah, that's people get very confused about this. There are a lot of things that can be similar. Look, both therapists and coaches are trying to help you get to a place where you're leading a happier life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we tend to work at things from opposite directions. So, like a therapist is working on your mindset in order to help you hopefully change your behavior. Right? But coaches work in the opposite way. We work on changing behaviors toward changing your mindset. And frequently people need both, depending on what it is, right? Depending on the severity of what it is, you might need both, but you might just need one. If it's an issue with just like, what do I do during the day to make this better? I would say a coach is a really good option for you. Because of what you talked about earlier, Jen, you were saying that, your therapist isn't there. You might have to wait to see a therapist for a week. Well, right now, look, I just want you to know, if you're trying to get new into therapy right now, before COVID, people were waiting for public help for about 6 to 8 months. Just imagine what that is now. Because of the overall multiple crises we have, everything across the board is up about 30 to 40%. Folks are anxious, they're depressed, they're getting panicky. I mean, it's dire out there for a lot of folks. So there are some reasons to use a therapist and not a coach too. Like, if it's a mental health issue that is really severe that needs to be grounded, there are also things like schizophrenia and, recognized diseases that really need to be, if you see a coach, you could see a coach for certain kinds of life skills, but you really need to be seeing a therapist too. Right?
If there's a chemical imbalance in the brain or something that they may need medication in addition to the coach that might give them some tips on how to just survive every single day. from
Right,
minute to minute.
right. Some forms of mental health concerns require medication, require other therapies, require things that coaches can't do. The coaches are not trained to do. So, that's not my focus. My focus is really on how are you going to live your daily life, and how can we get your emotions to a place where you can really manage them right now.
So,
You know,
so how do they, it's not always possible right now to stop in the middle of work, or you're trying to parent a child, or your dog needs walking or whatever, and something is triggering you. It's not always possible to stop and meditate, in the middle of all of this. So,
right.
we have our day-to-day routines. We can't really change any of that. Is there anything you can tell people who experience like sudden panic?
Mhm.
What's like a great way to like help calm them down immediately when that hits?
Yeah.
Like say I'm driving home in the car and I flip on the news
Mhm.
channel and they tell me something going on in politics and I'm like, I can't breathe.
Right.
How can you calm down? Like right there, I'm trying to drive, I'm in traffic, but I'm having a panic attack.
Right. Well, if it's that exact situation, I'd say turn off the news and start breathing. Really. But if it's not that, there's any number of what are called help now strategies. These are things that help to ground people. If you're panicking, what's happening is, let's just imagine for a second. I'll do this with my hands. This is your resilience zone, two horizontal lines. If you walk through your day, before COVID and before all these crises, and maybe now, on an average day, whatever that is now, the new normal, you're going like this. You get a little anxious, you go up, you get a little depressed, you go down. As long as you stay between those two horizontal lines, you're still, doing your best in being your best person. But what you just described is you got a sudden attack, right? That triggered a panic attack, right?
Mhm.
That'll send you right up through the top of your resilience zone into anxiety, depression. Now you're thinking about the future and worrying about it, right? Or you're thinking about the past and you're depressed about what we lost or what we left behind. I mean, I've struggled with that. Apparently my idea of what America was or is was a little different than a lot of people that live here.
Imagine.
I've struggled with that, like a lot of people have. Anyway, so you can get hit up or out of your resilience zone at the top or the bottom, and people with PTSD frequently experience both at the same time, right? If that's the case, the first thing you got to do is, immediately name the emotion, right? This is a 3-step process I use with my clients, and I just posted a video about this today. So this is really timely. Check out Stop, Look, Go on my, it's brand new video. There aren't too many videos. You should be able to find it. I'm new at some of this.
Her YouTube channel is relatively new. Not a lot of subscribers.
Yeah.
You'll need to go over and subscribe to her channel.
Yes, please. And so, but in any event, the first thing to do is name the emotion. UCLA actually studied this, and they said that it doesn't solve all your problems, but what naming the emotion does helps you to get back in touch with your thinking mechanisms, out of the emotion and into the thinking. So after naming the emotion, then you want to do something you want to see if you can get to a place where you're observing it as opposed to reacting to the emotion. We can't control what emotions come up. We can't, for a lot of different reasons. You're an emotional person. It means your brain is working. It's doing its job. And now you've got this emotion, right?
Mhm.
So name it. If it's really big, use a coping skill, ground it, breathe. You can do simple things like if you're in a room, you can press against the wall or lay down on the floor and really press into the floor. It really, feel your connection. Like I was talking earlier about feeling your connection, putting your attention to what supports you. Right now, it's this chair. If you're
I teach people, when I teach students how to ground, I always tell them, if you can't feel the soles of your feet on the floor, get up and stomp your feet till you can feel the soles of your feet on the floor. And I will do it, sitting here until I feel the soles of my feet, and that grounds me down. So that's my personal trick for helping to ground.
That's a good one. I mean, really, there are so many different things. One great one is walking forward and counting backward, for instance. Anything that stops your mind, right? Anything that stops or slows down your mind, and really that can be a personal decision what you use, right? So I would look into those kinds of things. Of course, the standard ones: breathing, meditation, listening to music. The point is to get your attention, get to where you can observe and allow. That can take practice, right?
Yeah. If you don't do some of these things to interrupt the brain a little bit, I know, like in my 20s, I had a boss that would trigger me and remind me of my dad. And if I didn't change the mind, I would sit there and just fixate and obsess over, this guy is acting just like my dad, blah, 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 blah. Like, couldn't get it out, like running a loop in my head over and over and over. So breaking that loop, when you start to have something that starts to fixate, I love that walking forward and counting backwards, because that's totally, it's like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. You can't fixate on something if you're distracting your brain a little bit.
Right. Now, these are help now kinds of things. This is only dealing with panic in the moment, right? This isn't dealing with long-term stress. Like right now, people really are dealing with life and death situations. I think we just passed the 250,000 deaths from COVID within the last 24 hours. And that means, if people who are in that situation, who are dealing with grief, need a whole other level of connection and support and healing. So don't think that I'm saying, to stop it at help now and ground, but take your mental health seriously. You want to be able to get back and get back to your goals and your sense of purpose in time and as intact as possible, but you have to deal with where you are right now. And the fact is, a lot of people are dealing with an awful lot of loss. So if that's the case, this is the most important time to be connecting with other people, giving as much support to each other and acting collectively as much as possible, in positive ways. Checking in with people and say, hey, are you okay today? How are you? Giving them an opportunity to get some of that off, making the connection with others. Oh, you need a little bit of food? I have some extra food today here. You need me
to run to the grocery store for you, or whatever the need.
You need a place to stay is a harder one for people these days, but it can and has been. I know people who have had some extra space and have lent it to people safely, right? Look, put your safety and your health first, but don't neglect your mental health. It's what, so many of us just, again, that disconnection, right? So, remember to connect your brain to your body. They're in the same container. So, do something. When people are really stressed, it shows up in their body. If you get an injury in your body, it shows up in stress in the brain. You are one unit. And so right now,
I find when my brain is fixated on something, I'm klutzier. Like that's when I'll like sprain my ankle or something because I'm not watching where I'm going, because my brain's running that loop on something.
It's so funny that you said that, because right after we went into lockdown, like within a month, I was running around doing something and I fell down 2 steps here in the house, just 2 little steps, fell down and sprained both my feet. And I was in one of my legs was in like a boot for a month. I mean, it literally, there's always opportunity in these things, right, Jen? There's
Yeah.
always opportunity. So there was my opportunity to slow down. Literally, the world did it for me.
Yeah, I find the universe will do that for me too if I don't pay attention.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So, do you work on your own or as a part of a team with therapists, or you kind of talked about it a little bit, like working with therapists,
Mhm.
or are there times where someone might need just the coach and not the therapist?
Right. So I mentioned a little bit that I work as a behavior therapist. Now, when I'm being a coach, I'm not being a behavior therapist. Uh, but that would be a time where I'm doing some skills like a coach and working as part of a whole team, right? In behavior therapy, you're part of a team. I use some of the skills that I know from behavior therapy in my coaching work. But I mean, there are other times too. I work with folks who do have a mental health diagnoses and have both a psychiatrist and a therapist. And then I'm part of that team, right? Working on emotional management and life skills. But there are also most of my clients, though, are folks who are not working with therapists, but need some real assistance in some area of their life. Again, it's about getting to a place where you just feel comfortable and have a sense that you're moving in the right direction and a little bit of hope. I've worked with one person, for instance, who was really in a dire circumstance to work through some domestic violence issues, make a safe plan, um, find new work, find work where she felt that she was really qualified, staying safe through that process, and then rebuilding confidence and purpose and goals and being able to move forward. And look, when you're in that situation, or when you've been abused and you're having a panic attack, like we were just talking about,
Mhm.
what happens is frequently you end up spending a lot of time in these very primitive or childlike kinds of states where you're just, panicked and freaked out and you're not sure what to do. When you're in that
Feel
space,
powerless. You feel
yeah,
powerless, like
yeah,
you're frozen and powerless.
that's right. It's like constantly feeling like a deer in headlights, right?
Mhm.
So if you're in that space, you definitely could use a little hand to get out of that space, right?
Yeah.
So I know, I understand where I would never do the work of a crisis center. I make sure that people are connected where they need to be.
Mhm.
So that's an example where I might work as part of an extended team for someone to move forward, right?
Right.
Um, but some of my work is really, someone had a terrible experience in the past. Um, let's look at what we can do to minimize some of how it's impacting you on a day in day out basis. You know, or I've also worked with people um, who are adopted as kids, and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to reach out and try to track down their adopted parents. Um, and so there are so many different life circumstances where it's just like, where do I start? Where do I go? I'm having a bunch of anxiety about this. What do I do about this?
What do I expect from this situation? And
Right. And usually there is a lot of emotional management that's all tied up in that, or lack there. These things are really important to people, right? And so when it's really important, when it's coming up a lot, or when you just need help to be more productive and you can't figure out, your way out of the box that you're in, that's a good time to reach out to a coach. Just make sure that they're experienced in specifically what it is you're trying to
well,
address.
I was going to say, how do you find a good coach? Like, what do you look for? Because, like, just like a dentist or anything else, like, I'll try a different when I relocate. It may take me a
Mhm.
couple of dentists to find a dentist I like. Um,
Right,
I
right.
I do use word of mouth. Like, I talk to friends, my new friends, whenever I relocate, about who do you use for this type of doctor or this type of dentist or eye doctor or whatever. So you can ask around, but how do you find a good coach, and what makes a good coach? Like, how do you know I've got a good
Mhm.
coach for me?
Well, people are less familiar with coaches, I find. You know, uh, Americans are warming up to therapy more in different ways, right? But less familiar with the idea of a coach, right? So we've covered what coaches do a lot. Uh, but like finding a therapist, probably the most important thing is to focus on the relationship, because where you go and how far you get is going to be dependent upon how much you trust that person, and what it is that they know. So that's the second thing. Focus on, find out what it is that they know. What's their background? What's their experience? Have they worked with people with your particular issue before? Right.
Mhm.
And in terms of finding them, there are, these days, Google is a big help. Use a search engine, check some different people out. There are plenty of coaches out there. If they're on YouTube, at least you get a chance to kind of see what they're about, right?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that your personality meshes with their personality, right? You want to be able to, if you're going to work with somebody for 6 months or longer, um, then you're going to want to find somebody you're not going to be irritated by every time you step in the room,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or you'll quit meeting with them.
Yes. Look for somebody too who, they usually folks will have, like, a lot of coaches will offer something free, right? So take some sort of free program, check it out a little bit. Is this something that, and then you can usually ask them questions. So, take the step of, you don't have to feel obligated if you submit, a form and say, hey, I'd like to talk with you. I'm thinking about a one-on-one kind of situation, just contact them, and you'll get to know pretty quickly whether this is somebody you feel comfortable with or not,
Yeah.
right?
And it's not something that um, you're going to get a miracle overnight cure. It's something you have to work through with the coach or therapist, to get to that point where you feel you're bringing yourself forward in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, on average, it takes about, people are patterning, right?
Mhm.
People are just, we live in these patterns, and the reason why we don't want to change is because we're comfortable with our patterns. And one of the reasons why everybody's stressed out right now is um, at least a third of the country and the guy in the White House changed a bunch of our patterns, and we're freaking out. And then, coronavirus comes along and changes a whole bunch of the rest of our patterns. So, that's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to deal with. It takes, on average, in terms of changing behavior, on average, it takes about 6 months to start seeing some sort of change. You can see some changes before that. You could kind of point in that direction, but it takes on average about 6 months to really see it start to take root, right? My goal as a coach is to become, is not to be a perpetual talk therapist kind of thing. That's not what I do. As a coach, I want my clients to outlive my services. I want to get to a point where my clients feel comfortable being on their own. I've got this, and I'm gone. I'm doing, stay in touch. Some of my clients I've had for many years, different circumstances, right?
Mhm.
Some of my clients were done in like 6 to 9 months. And either way, I'm happy if they're, going on the road, things are improving.
Well, I'm sure there are some that, like, you can go along for a couple of years and all of a sudden you've got a new trigger, where you, like, suddenly
Yes.
realize there's a new trigger. So you reach back out to your coach and have a few sessions again to help you through that new trigger.
Well, the another thing happens too. people frequently come to me and they don't really know exactly what it is that they want. They just know that they're not getting through a day okay, right?
Mhm.
Or they know that they have this particular memory that's really difficult and just need to figure out what to do, right? But when you get into it and you start talking a little bit and we start just exploring and discovering some, you know, inevitably, when dealing with abuse, violence, and neglect, inevitably there will be a moment where we've talked for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, even a year in some cases. And suddenly in one session, it'll all come pouring out,
Yeah.
right? Suddenly, then you've got a whole bunch of other concerns to address. But that's great because now you have an opportunity to address them, right?
Because it's finally out. It's finally.
Right. There's this story about sunlight over the well I like to talk about in terms of this. There's a well, and in the deep, dark well down in the bottom, there's a bunch of little creepy crawlies, right? Running around. You shine a light over the well, then the creepy crawlies come to the surface. And that's when you have the opportunity to grab them and pull them out, right? And it's exactly like that. You get into with some people that I work with, that's the way it is. We get in there and we're not really sure what those creepy crawlies are, and then suddenly it just becomes really apparent. And that's the opportunity, right? That's the opportunity to really start moving forward then.
Wow, that's a great metaphor for it. I can see that. So what kind of training and background do you have that allows you to work with people on resilience?
Well, I've talked about some of it. I'm a survivor myself. That doesn't necessarily qualify me to work with other people, though. But it does mean that a lot of the techniques that I work with people, I've tried myself, and I know what works. And I even employ techniques that that maybe haven't worked for me, but I know have worked for other people. So we haven't mentioned, I'm a board certified cognitive specialist. That just means that I know a little bit about how people think. I have a behavior therapy background. That means I've worked with kids with autism and other neurological deficits. But I've worked for 3 decades, actually more than 3 decades, I hate to say, but I have worked for 3 decades. More than 3 decades with people who are survivors of sexual and domestic violence. I've coached I'm an internationally certified 5th degree black belt in instructor. And as a result of that, I know what to do to help people feel a little bit more confident and to reach goals, right? And to, explore values. What do values mean? What's really important? And I bring all of those skills into what it is that I do. I don't use them all with every single person, obviously, but it just has given me a unique skill set. I'm also, I've certified as a health coach, and I've spent a lot of time, wrote a book about nutrition. And so I have a lot of experience to help people wherever it is that they need a little help living.
It's
right?
it's almost a total lifestyle thing. Your background pulls together a total lifestyle to help people because every person is different, what their goals are and what they hope to accomplish and finding their life purpose and things. It's different for everyone. So
right, I'm well grounded in mental health concerns. Also, I have I don't have a degree in that area, but I have extensive knowledge in that area.
Wow. So do you have any events coming up that people can look into?
I do. I've got one this Saturday. If folks are available this Saturday at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, there's something I'm doing called Overcoming Overwhelm. Just some simple steps to do exactly that. And it's just 45 minutes. And you're going to learn a little bit about what we talked about today. So, naming emotions, grounding. how do you get to move forward a little bit? And a little bit about, purpose, life purpose, and goal setting.
Yeah. So I'll mention again, all of your contact information is in the description box on the video so that people can call you, or that, she is on the West Coast, out in California, so Pacific time. So don't be calling her in the middle of the night, guys. But they can email you or they can call you. They can check out your website, and definitely check out our YouTube channel. It really, I mean, even if you don't have any major anxieties, it's just a great way to let go of a little bit of stress. Her videos are fabulous. I just wanted to pull some cards with the angels for a minute here and to see if what they want to say about resilience.
Yeah. And, while you're doing that, I just wanted to add really quick, if you're available to come this weekend, to go to overwhelmnow.com. And, if you sign up today or tomorrow, then I'll be able to send you a 20% off coupon for a new store we're going to launch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'll send you a free copy of my book.
I just think it's wonderful work you're doing. Every time we talk, I'm like, wow, you're just getting into such interesting things, and you can work with people all over the world. I know Jenn has Skype. We've Skyped together, so she can be available, for sessions by Skype or phone, if you're not in California. And right now you're having to do everything that way, right?
Oh yeah. I have clients all over the country right now. I'm open to all over the world.
Yeah. I have the Queen of Wands on the bottom here, and she is a queen that has great marketing abilities and creative abilities, and she's grounded, but she's got that fire energy that moves her forward. So it tells me like you're helping people to find that way to move forward in a creative approach. People that are blocked or stuck, running that loop in their head over and over and over again. They just can't feel like they can take a step forward. People that just feel rejected by society even, and can't figure out how to make that positive step forward. Ace of Wands, a new action, a new growth opportunity. It does take a collaboration. So people who get into coaching, they've got to be willing to partner with you to work through these things. But there's a legacy that you're setting, because you're changing their legacy. They're no longer the victim. They're no longer stuck and trapped and blocked. You're changing their legacy and how they move forward and how they view themselves, as well as how others view them.
Right. I point the way, and my folks do the work. If they do the work, then there's transformation.
Yeah, there's the Page of Swords. He's can be a liar. Do you find a lot of people lie to themselves, like before they reach out, like they just?
Well, I don't know. I don't usually categorize it as lying so much as not, sometimes
Deceiving
needing to build
themselves.
trust, right? Remember, we talked about trust. So, it's about, you got to get to a place where you trust someone, then share the information. So that card could really be talking about that,
Yeah, it's almost like deceiving yourself a little bit that there's nobody out there you can trust. There are coaches out there, and therapists out there that you can trust and help to bring forward manifesting new things. And I get the victory card with it. So the angels are just bringing forward what you've been talking about, new beginnings with the Fool, and doing it in a way that they're more consistent in how they charge for, as opposed to being erratic, so that they learn tools to help them. This is life-changing with the Wheel of Fortune here. It's completely life-changing. And Seven of Pentacles, it helps them to ground and to live the lifestyle that they want to live, and no longer live in that loop in the head or whatever they're playing over and over.
Right. Remember at the very beginning, I said I have the best job in the world, and that's really why. It's such. I'm so grateful to be in a position to see people growing and developing that way, and even though it really took the coronavirus to lock me into a position, almost literally, to where I could realize this. This is what I've wanted to do in this means for quite some time. So I'm just grateful that that I can be of assistance.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I know this was very different for my subscribers to watch a video like this, and I know that it will continue to get views over the next few weeks here. But you guys, if you have any questions?
Oh yeah, let's do that. I've seen some of the comments, and I just wanted to say, folks in your room, in your chat, have had some brilliant things to say. And thank you so much. I'm really glad that some of you got something out of this talk tonight. But yeah, do people have questions?
If you have any questions in chat, or if you want to post any questions on the video once it posts as a regular video, you can put comments in there for people watching this later. And Jean, I'll just ask you to kind of watch those comments for the next week or so, and reply to people if anybody has any specific questions that you might be better able to help them with than I will be.
Oh, I definitely will, and if anyone wants to get to know me, just reach out too. I'll be looking forward to getting to know some more of your folks in the chat. I'll follow up with that. If you're in a bind right now, if you're really suffering, please do just take that first step and reach out.
Or if you have a family member or a friend that is, talk to them about taking that first step.
And if you can reach out to me, even if I don't have even if I'm not the exact right person to help you, I'll work with you to try to find out someone who can.
That's awesome.
Right.
I look forward to seeing what else you get into through the years, because you're just an amazing person to me, and I so enjoyed talking with you today and sharing you with our viewers. Thank you guys to those that were doing super chats. I was not paying too much attention during the live stream because I was trying to keep our conversation going here. But thank you for joining. I'll try to be back on soon with more of my usual reading videos. Thank you again, Jean.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I just had to laugh for a second. I'm so glad I had to plug I left my laptop uncharged.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll end the broadcast here before we lose you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you so much. It was so great being here, Jen. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.